Oi, hoje nós vamos trabalhar 6 tempos verbais em inglês utilizando o verbo to be, né? Começando por estado. Só para explicar um pouquinho, você já deve ter visto que o verbo tem 5 fases, sendo qualidade, estado, movimento, ação e existência, né? E dessas 5, 4 envolvem o verbo to be. Então é muito importante você saber como usá-lo. Nós vamos começar por estado. Estado é o que indica situação temporária, né? Por exemplo, eu estou aqui, você está aí, eu estou bem, você está bem, nós estamos em São Paulo, né? E então, nos primeiros slides eu vou explicar e depois eu vou fazer algo meio que num ritmo de repetição para você treinar, tá bom? Vamos começar. Presente, passado e futuro, certo? Semana passada, ontem, hoje, amanhã, semana que vem. Então, eu vou começar falando do passado para o futuro, né? E depois vou falar o período, tá bom? Então, vamos testar aqui. Last week, yesterday, né? Juntou 2 passados e fez um período. Ontem, eu estava em casa desde semana passada. Ou você poderia estar quantificando. Ontem, eu estava em casa por 2 dias, certo? Então, quando você vai falar período, essa é a estrutura. Quando você fala tempos verbais simples de tempo, tem tempo específico, ontem, hoje, amanhã, você usa essas. Essa aqui, quando você fala de período, eu tinha estado, certo? Por um tempo ou desde um tempo, ok? Então, vamos lá. Aqui, mesma coisa, você está trabalhando um período até o presente, no passado até o presente, eu tenho estado em casa. E de um passado até o futuro, né? Eu terei estado em casa desde ou por tanto tempo, certo? Então, são 3 tempos verbais, presente, passado e futuro, simples. E são 3 tempos verbais no período, presente, passado e futuro de período. Ou as famosas formas perfeitas, né? Que fala de período. Então, vamos começar agora a fazer num ritmo de repetição, ok? Você pode acompanhar ou só ouvir, tentar pausar, né, e ir repetindo, mas é legal que você ouça primeiro. Vamos lá. I was sick last week. I was still sick yesterday. I am sick today. I will be sick tomorrow. I will still be sick next week. Yesterday, I had been sick since last week. Today, I have been sick since last week. Next week, I will have been sick since last week. I was in Canada last week. I was still in Canada yesterday. I am in Canada today. I will be in Canada tomorrow. I will still be in Canada next week. Yesterday, I had been in Canada since last week. Today, I have been in Canada since last week. Next week, I will have been in Canada since last week. She was at home last week. She was still at home yesterday. She is at home now. She will be at home tomorrow. She will still be at home next week. Yesterday, she had been at home since last week. Today, she has been at home since last week. Next week, she will have been at home since last week. She was sick last week. She was still sick yesterday. She is sick today. She will be sick tomorrow. She will still be sick next week. Yesterday, she had been sick since last week. Today, she has been sick since last week. Next week, she will have been sick since last week. She was in Canada last week. She was still in Canada yesterday. She is in Canada today. She will be in Canada tomorrow. She will still be in Canada next week. Yesterday, she had been in Canada since last week. Today, she has been in Canada since last week. Next week, she will have been in Canada since last week. He was at home last week. He was still at home yesterday. He is at home now, today. He will be at home tomorrow. He will still be at home next week. Yesterday, he had been at home since last week. Today, he has been at home since last week. Next week, he will have been at home since last week. He was sick last week. He was still sick yesterday. He is sick today. He will be sick tomorrow. He will still be sick next week. Yesterday, he had been sick since last week. Today, he has been sick since last week. Next week, he will have been sick since last week. He was in Canada last week. He was still in Canada yesterday. He is in Canada today. He will be in Canada tomorrow. He will still be in Canada next week. Yesterday, he had been in Canada since last week. Today, he has been in Canada since last week. Next week, he will have been in Canada since last week. We were at home last week. We were still at home yesterday. We are at home now. We will be at home tomorrow. We will still be at home next week. Yesterday, we had been at home since last week. Today, we have been at home since last week. Next week, we will have been at home since last week. We were sick last week. We were still sick yesterday. We are sick today. We will be sick tomorrow. We will still be sick next week. Yesterday, we had been sick since last week. Today, we have been sick since last week. Next week, we will have been sick since last week. We were in Canada last week. We were still in Canada yesterday. We are in Canada today. We will be in Canada tomorrow. We will still be in Canada next week. Yesterday, we had been in Canada since last week. Today, we have been in Canada since last week. Next week, we will have been in Canada since last week. They were at home last week. They were still at home yesterday. They are at home now. They will be at home tomorrow. They will still be at home next week. Yesterday, they had been at home since last week. Today, they have been at home since last week. Next week, they will have been at home since last week. They were sick last week. They were still sick yesterday. They are sick today. They will be sick tomorrow. They will still be sick next week. Yesterday, they had been sick since last week. Today, they have been sick since last week. Tomorrow or next week, they will have been sick since last week. They were in Canada last week. They were still in Canada yesterday. They are in Canada today. They will be in Canada tomorrow. They will still be in Canada next week. Yesterday, they had been in Canada since last week. Today, they have been in Canada since last week. Next week, they will have been in Canada since last week. You were at home last week. You were still at home yesterday. You are at home now, today. You will be at home tomorrow. You will still be at home next week. Yesterday, you had been at home since last week. Today, you have been at home since last week. Next week, you will have been at home since last week. You were sick last week. You were sick. You were still sick yesterday. You are sick today. You will be sick tomorrow. You will still be sick next week. Yesterday, you had been sick since last week. Today, you have been sick since last week. Next week, you will have been sick since last week. You were in Canada last week. You were still in Canada yesterday. You are in Canada today. You will be in Canada tomorrow. You will still be in Canada next week. Yesterday, you had been in Canada since last week. Today, you have been in Canada since last week. Next week, you will have been in Canada since last week.